Hey, what's up, Exit the Matrix family? Bob here. Hey guys, I hope you're having a great day. Thank you for joining me on this morning talk. So, I wanted to keep talking about the video game theory, and this be part 2 of that talk. There's just a lot to go into this, and a lot of it overlaps with quantum physics, hermetics laws, actual, like role-playing, like type video games and stuff, virtual reality. So a lot of this stuff crosses over, a lot of the ideas in the movie The Matrix, and of course The Matrix was actually, the storyline was based off of the Gnostic teachings. A lot of people don't know that. They always bring up all the time. It's about the two brothers that turned into sisters, and it's about them being trans, living in a world that's against that and trying to break out of that. And it's such bullshit, dude. They didn't even write that, okay? They produced, they directed. That's it. And I know there's a lot of let's just say social media companies don't like you talking about or sourcing the lady, at least that claims to be the writer of the Terminator trilogy and the Matrix trilogy. She goes and breaks it all down. Like John Connor, it's JC, supposed to stand for Jesus Christ. But when you look at the Matrix, it's got so much Gnostic symbolism in it. So whether it was this lady that claims to be the one who wrote it or not, whoever did write it, they were really pulling from ancient texts. The Mr. Smiths and all that are essentially the archons, and there's a lot of undertones. You could say Christian undertones to the movie, and yes, of course, because the Gnostics were the early Christian mystics, kind of similar to like the Muslim Sufis. A lot of the Zoroastrians back then had a lot of influence over the other early religions and cultures. The battle between Ahriman and Ahura Mazda, the light and the dark, the flame. They usually have the god of light represented by the flame, which obviously all ties into sun worship too. I mean, look, folks, every religion ties back to sun worship, okay? Easter, that's why it's always about, right? The resurrection. For 3 days, the sun dies, it lays flat, it doesn't move in the sky up or down, it stays at the same level. And then at the spring equinox, the sun has risen. The Son of God, the S-U-N of God has risen. And that's because the early Roman, or the Roman power structure, they took the early Christian church and they incorporated all of their pagan rituals and holidays, and most of it lines up with the equinoxes. And they tied those, they made holidays, they tied their holidays and festivals in with Christianity, because they were trying to bring the pagans into the Christian church when Christianity became the state religion. And they didn't want to ruffle too many feathers by getting rid of all the pagan gods and the festivals of the pagan gods, so they just remixed it all together. And I know that this really upsets Christians, because they're like, oh, and look, there's other teachings in the resurrection, folks. I've already gone over this, but the point I'm trying to make in all this is look, it's all an illusion. Everything you think is real is an illusion. History has been manipulated, religions have been manipulated, And it's all been to keep you in line and to trick you. But the mystics, the Gnostics who were mystics, who were more likely from the order of the Essenes, they were mystics. They were not part of the structured early church. They were the outliers. They were teaching spiritualism and near-death experience and stuff like that. The Egyptian mystery school teachings. They were incorporating Platoism in with the early church teachings. And I've already told you guys that's because Yeshua, John the Baptist, the three Marys, they were all Essenes. They were mystics. That's why the church structure at the time, or the synagogue structure, you could say, the Judean, they despised Yeshua and the Essenes. They wanted to stamp them out, stomp them out. So, anyways, folks, when you talk about video game theory, you got to understand some key components. Like I mentioned yesterday in the video, the game master, right? You always have the game master or the game masters, who are the ones that are kind of sitting outside of the game. Sometimes they have power to interact with the game, to manipulate the game, to update the game. But oftentimes they just tend to be the ones to manage the game. People that used to play, and I never did it, but I know it was popular back in the days, that used to do, Dungeons and Dragons, right? That was a big game back in the 80s, and you had to have this game master, and he would set up the games and the scenarios and manage the players and manage the bad guys, right? Like the characters, the monsters that you would have to fight and all that. And you find this a lot, like with board games and stuff too. I'm trying to remember the name of it. I had this really awesome board game, but you had to have one player play like the game master. Same thing. He would set up the scenarios. There was like little pieces of furniture on the game board you would set up, and he had to control like the bad guys, the orcs and skeletons and all that. Oh my God, what is that game called? It's driving me nuts now. I can't remember the name of it. I love that game. In fact, I hand painted all the figurines in the game. So I had like a customized game. But it was similar to Dungeons and Dragons. It was like a board game version of it. And then you could buy expansion packs for it. Man, I could picture the game, but I can't picture the name for some reason. I can even remember the barbarian on the cover of the box of the main version of the game. But anyways, maybe it'll catch up to me later in this video. But anyways, not that it's important, but it probably brings some nostalgia back to some of you that are kind of Gen X age like me, that grew up with that game and everything. Anyways, so you got to understand, there's always game masters. Well, if you look at the ancient texts, it talks about the Council of the Anuna, the Bible, the Elohim, and the Council of the Gods, right? The Elohim, the shining ones, the powerful ones. You got the Book of Enoch talking about the Watchers. You got the Muslims talk about the jinn. These magical beings, that in some ways they're connotated as evil, and sometimes these game masters or these powers behind the scenes are not. Like, right, in the Bible, you got the archangels and you got the fallen angels. Well, who were the fallen angels? Well, the fallen angels, according to the Bible, were the ones that left their place in heaven and started manipulating this realm. Started actually procreating with women and such. And that's where you got the Nephilim, the hybrid children. Well, if you read the cuneiform tablets, you have a similar story, except it was the Anuna, the royal-blooded Anunnaki, who started procreating with these humans, these Homo sapiens, that they hybridized from an earlier hominid that walked the earth. They found them to be beautiful, and they started taking them as wives and such. But I need you to understand one thing. This is misunderstood in the Bible, or at least it's not taught in the Bible because it's a very patriarchal type writing, is that in the cuneiform, there are female Anunnaki, okay? There's Inanna, there's Ki, the consort of Anu. There's all kinds. Nin-Herzog, also known as Ninma. There's Ninti. We could go on and on. But look, the Anunnaki, the Anuna, there were males and females. Whereas in the Bible, it just tries to say the sons of God, like all the angels are males, right? Well, look, folks, I've already explained to you guys how the Abrahamic faith started out as closer to the Anuna, or the ancient Sumerian and such, and later on, when they made it a patriarchal religion, they got rid of the mothers, of the divine feminine, of the female characters in the story. All of a sudden, the Council of the Anuna, which some of the highest ranking were females, all of a sudden became the sons of God, the archangels, right? With no females. And same thing happened with Asherah, the consort of Yahweh. He had a wife. She was taken away. In fact, in ancient temples, they found, or synagogues, whatever you want to call them, they would find shrines of Asherah next to Yahweh's in the same temple. But those were taken away as the Judean faith became patriarchal, and they got rid of all females from the storyline of the divine feminine. So just understand that. Look, there's I know it seems like I'm straying from the subject here, but you guys got to understand, like, I'm trying to tie this ancient teachings in with, eventually we're going to delve into the quantum physics, into this new technologies like quantum computing and these VR games, that we have now. I mean, you got games like The Sims and all that, right? A lot of this, I remember when The Sims first came out, it was like in the late 90s or early 2000s, right around that time, and I had the first Sims on the computer. And it was a fantastic game. It was very interesting too, because in that game, you became the game master, right? You set up the scenarios, with these Sims, with these human-like avatars, right, in the game. And it started to give you a interesting insight into our world and how things work. And it's just, I find it interesting, folks. Like, and then of course things like, continue to increase over time. Then you had Ultima Online, and then World of Warcraft, and then eventually games like Skyrim and Grand Theft Auto and all that. Whereas these role-playing games became some of our most popular genre of gaming, right? Because it, for once, you got to either be the game master and control the avatars, or else you got to design your own avatar in the game, and you were in more of an interactive world that started to become more immersive, where you could get lost in the game more. I mean, let's be real, folks. Like, look, I'm a gamer. I don't have any reason to deny that. I grew up on video games. Me and my brother had a Nintendo. We had an Intellivision before. If you guys remember Intellivision, that was like it competed with Atari, but it wasn't as popular. My dad had a friend at the time that had like every video game system ever created, and he had gotten some new gaming systems, and he gave us one of his Intellivision sets, and so we were playing that before the Nintendo even came out. We never had an Atari, but it was kind of similar to Atari. Had like Dungeons and Dragons and all these games, I remember at Burger Time. It was an interesting gaming system. Pretty cool. I wish I still had that thing, because I guarantee you that thing's worth a lot of money now. You think back to that stuff, you wish you would have held on to some of that stuff, right? even a Nintendo system that works with like the original Zelda, you could probably sell that combo for $600 or more. But anyways, so, you know, I've been a gamer, and look, man, I get it. I know some people are going to come at me and say, oh, you can't be spiritual or awakened if you play video games. Folks, look, dude, this realm sucks. Let's be real. This realm has a duality. You deal with so much pain and sorrow and slavery and all these negative things. And look, folks, it's not all bad. I get that. You also have love making. You have raising children and just a lot of positive things in this realm too, right? Babies and animals and just the beauty of nature. Like, look, I'm not trying to paint everything as black, but let's be honest. We all deal with negativity, with the lower vibratory, lower vibration things. It's part of living in a realm of duality. And so sometimes you want an escape, right? And not only that, like, let's enjoy. I mean, you got to come here to enjoy things too, right? You can't all be just like all research and study, and sometimes you just got to escape a little. And some people do that with with meditation. I got to admit, folks, I'm not good at meditation where you just sit there and do, just empty the mind and don't think of it. My mind is always going, as you guys can tell. So I don't do that type of meditation very well. For me, I meditate by hiking, garnet hunting, gem hunting. That's where I get out, and I can kind of get away from people and civilization for a little bit. And for me, I feel closer connection to the creator of all that way, to the higher dimensions when I'm out in nature. And you get your aura field gets cleansed and you get grounded, and I don't know. For me, that's how I meditate. Now, some of you that are hardcore, like, yoga pose meditators and all that may say that that's not real meditation. Well, whatever. But sometimes I can also use video gaming as a meditation. Like, me and my son, sometimes we play Minecraft together. I know I'm a kid at heart sometimes, but hey, it's one of the games that's actually good. My kids growing up, I played with them. It was a positive game. It uses your creativity. It's like basically a video game version of Legos, right? Well, I can play Minecraft and build structures and kind of get lost in the game, but as I'm playing the game, I'm using my mind, I'm being creative, and then sometimes that's when I'll listen to NDE accounts, so I can multitask, so I can be listening to these accounts, I can be doing creative things in the game, and for me, that's also a type of meditation. So video games aren't all bad, folks, okay? I just want to make that point. But we live in a realm that it's obvious there's some kind of game masters behind the scenes. There's somebody pulling the strings. Now, a lot of us would probably say, me included, that these are negative entities, right? These archons. That they're negative beings, and that they're managing this realm for their own ends, and that they're, trying to manipulate humanity and for negative reasons, and that may be true, and I think a lot of them are. But I also think it's fair to say that if this was a created game, or like some kind of a learning module, like / third dimensional experience that we created to come experience from a higher dimension, to experience duality and all that, well, I would assume that some of these game masters would need to be positive entities too, to keep the balance, right? Because if it was only negative entities running this realm, there would be no hope. They would completely capture the game and capture us. And to a certain degree, you can say maybe they have. And I don't know, folks, 100%. But I do like to at least theorize that there are, quote unquote, good guys managing this realm too. And that's that duality you even see in the Bible, right? With the archangels and the fallen angels. The archangels are the champions of men. They're there to help you when you need them, right? They're that unseen force that pulls people out of wrecked cars that you hear stories about. I hear this in NDEs a lot, where somebody's like kind of wavering in and out of their body, and they're like, there's this one lady I listened to, her car got flipped over, and the whole top of the car smashed in, and she was pinned in the car, and the other car had children in it that she wrecked with. And so all these people were trying to help those kids, and everybody ignored her, and she's smashed in, a car flipped over on its top, and the roof had caved in, and all of a sudden, she said, this guy just like came over and said, grab my hand, I'm gonna help you out. And she's like, oh, you can't, I'm pinned in, I can't even move. And she said this being just like yanked her right out like she was a feather. And then she was kind of going in and out of consciousness, and she passed out, and she actually popped above her body. And when she was watching around, she couldn't see this paramedic, this guy that pulled her out of her car. And all of a sudden, then finally the paramedics, the other ones that were helping these other people, they went and looked at her and checked up on her body, and they were doing CPR and all this on her. And when eventually, after her near-death experience, when she came back to life, she was asking about who was the paramedic that pulled me out of the car. And like all the paramedics, like that whole crew there, they're like, we didn't. No, it wasn't us. It must have been a bystander. So you hear this a lot in ND accounts and stuff, where people get a helping hand or something, or people that are drowning, and then all of a sudden, like somebody pulls them out of the water, right? And then next thing you know, this person disappears, once they get to safety. So I think, folks, that because this is a realm of dualism, that there's got to be, it would make sense, right, that there's negative and positive game masters behind the scenes. That it's not all just dark entities running things. We like to think that, right, because this realm is, it can be rough, folks. Look, we all go through it, right? Grief, sorrow, depression. We've all gone through this. You lose a family member, some people have been through super tragic things, wars and, miscarriages with their children and stuff like that. This realm's not easy, folks. But are these game masters, are they like also directors of this? Like, this is some grand movie. Remember how I told you guys there's some people have had these pre-birth, experiences where they remember they were with like a soul group, and they're writing up like a script, almost like a soul contract, a shared soul contracts, where they all interact within when they come to incarnate on Earth. Like, they play different characters in like a broader storyline. And so I don't know, are these game masters actually like the directors? Like, this is some grand play, right? Theater? I don't know, folks. It's just, look, I didn't get to touch on a whole lot, but I wanted to make the whole game master thing understood, because it'll tie into other things. And later on, this may become like a multi-part, maybe 4 or 5 part, a lot of times I get going on these things and you just can't get it in 30 minutes. So, sometimes we need to do multi-parts, and that way I can just kind of pick up. Look, folks, I don't pre-write these talks. I don't really plan them out. I just go with the flow. I allow the information to flow through me. And so, look, one thing you got to understand with me, I'm probably going to overlap when I do these multi-part talks, but it's because a lot of times I'm trying to re-tie things back in, but I do at least try to like make each of these like a certain subject, right? That it builds a bigger picture. But today I think it really was, more about the game masters, these powers behind the scenes. And look, folks, I don't have the answers to all this. I'm just speculating. I'm theorizing. And but there are interesting crossovers from like modern day gaming, you know, the older, like the board games and Dungeons and Dragons and all that, and what you read in the ancient texts with the Anuna, with the Elohim, with the archons, right? And then if you look at Zoroastrianism with the powers of Ahriman, right? Ahriman is like a satanic power, like a dark power that uses the wiles of this realm of the third dimension. It uses the human senses against the human, essentially. Essentially, it's the one that uses sin as a tool to manipulate people, whereas the Ahura Mazda, you know, the light, the positive, the creator God, is interacts with humankind from a higher dimension, you know, from love and light, to overcome this dark entity that manipulates us through our senses, right? Through pleasure and manipulation and stuff. It essentially takes the human senses and it uses it as a weapon against you. Is essentially what Ahriman does, right? If you guys really want to go deep on the whole Zoroastrian teachings without actually studying Zoroastrianism, Rudolf Steiner was a mystic writer in the early 1900s. It's crazy. I think I read somewhere that this dude wrote like thousands of books. I mean, just insane. But if you can look up Rudolf Steiner's talks on YouTube, there's some channels that will like have nothing but Rudolf Steiner, you know, a lot of those other mystics from Manly P. Hall and all that from back in the days. But anyways, Rudolf Steiner was an occultist, but not in a negative way. He was actually teaching the hidden secrets to the public. That he actually wasn't supposed to be doing that. He was, you know, a lot of the Masonic teachings and a lot of the other, you know, Rosicrucianism and stuff like that. He was putting all that information in the public forum with his talks and books. And anyways, Rudolf Steiner goes pretty hard on the whole Ahriman and Ahura Mazda battle, you know, that takes place in this realm, you know, between the light and the dark, and between the higher spiritual self and the lower carnal human self, and the desires of the flesh and all that, right? So it's pretty interesting if you want to kind of get an idea on the teachings of Zoroastrianism without actually digging into Zoroastrian writings, like official religious stuff. But you could go that route too, you know. Hey, but Rudolf Steiner kind of explains it all. He breaks it down where you can understand what this battle is, you know. If you read the religious text, you're probably going to have to like read through a lot of it to start getting that bigger picture, you know. But hey, whatever, man. I mean, if you're willing to do the research, go all the way, right? So anyways, guys, a lot of interesting stuff, you know. It's obvious that our world has manipulators behind the scenes. Are they all bad? Probably not. I think there's probably a balance, but we just don't see that balance because you know, like I said, most people operate from the lower dimensional self. They more or less operate as an animal, as the beast system, you know, the beast, through the body, through the carnal self. They're not, a lot of people are not in tune or connected to their higher self. And that goes for a lot of spiritual or supposed religious people, folks. Okay, a lot of your religious people, they really don't have a spiritual connection. They're going on on books written and the teachings of man, and they're hoping that's enough to, you know, to punch their ticket to heaven, right? You know, give the preacher some money each Sunday and bore your way through those 2 hours. And then go home and, okay, cool, I punched my ticket to heaven. If I die tomorrow, hey, cool, man. I got forgiven because I went to church yesterday and all that, right? I prayed and in the congregation and asked for forgiveness. And so that's it. I'm done. So it's not really that spiritual, though. You know, you're not really going and actually testing the book, researching it, you know, actually going out and really trying to connect with God, or going within, I should say, is more important, right? Like Yeshua said, the temple of God is within you, within us all, folks. Now, even if you're not a Christian, believe it or not, you can believe in God. I know it's weird with Christians. I noticed something. It's like they only think you can believe in God if it's their version of God, if it's their Yahweh character from this Old Testament or Jesus. You can say I believe in the Creator of all, the source of all creation, and they'll say that that's like Satan or something, you know. And the way I see it is like you're putting that above any teaching of man. That's how I put the Creator of all. It's like it's so expansive, and we really can't truly understand the Creator of all, the source of all creation. God to me is so much bigger than a book or just a heaven and hell, or a heaven and earth like dichotomy. And it's funny though, with Christians, it's like if you don't believe in their version of God, you don't believe in God. It's so crazy, man. And look, Muslims are the same and Judeans are the same. I mean, they're it's crazy. See, I actually think that Native Americans were a little more on course where they just said the Great Spirit, right? Like, yeah, they had their spirits of different parts of nature and all that, but the Great Spirit was the truth. That was the ultimate creator, right? And I think they actually were more in tune with the truth than all these religions that came out of Mesopotamia and out of Europe and, everything else. So, anyways, folks, we'll pick it back up tomorrow. Maybe what we'll go into next is NPCs, non-player characters. You'll see that a lot in games like Grand Theft Auto and Skyrim and, games like that. So, World of Warcraft, all that kind of stuff. But anyways, folks, I hope there's at least an interesting subject. Look, I don't have the answers, folks. I'm just a guy. I'm just a normal person just trying to make sense of all this. And I read a lot and I study a lot. And I just, I'm trying to bring you guys. I'm not force feeding you guys or putting the truth on a platter in front of you. I'm trying to find truth. Okay? And I think I get parts of it. Some stuff I'm probably right on, and there may be some stuff I'm wrong on, but we're just on this path of discovery together, okay? And that's why I'm always open to your guys' thoughts. I love the comments, and if any of you that actually comment under my videos, you know that I always answer your comments. You know that. I would love to see more interaction because I know there's a lot of you regulars. I can tell just by analytics on the videos, but I only usually hear from maybe 4 or 5 people, like the same people on every video. So, I'd like to hear from some of you, the rest of you, and hear what your thoughts are. And look, if you need to criticize me, that's fine too, because look, like I said, I'm not claiming to have the truth, or total truth, I should say. I just want to inspire others to get interested into thinking outside the box, into thinking for yourself, into breaking the programming you've been programmed your whole life under. That's it, man. That's my goal. I mean, collectively, maybe we work together as a community, the Exit the Matrix community, then we can get closer to truth, right? Because we can all learn from each other. We can all bring knowledge in a piece of the puzzle together to put, to build the larger puzzle, right? So, anyways, guys, hey, I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Remember what I told you guys about my new Zooms, what I want to do. Still, your donation for my time, but I'm going to start throwing in a little extra gift, a thank you to you guys. Any of you that books a Zoom with me, as you guys know, I'm an avid gem collector. Mostly rhodolite garnets. So they're a special rare purple garnet, not the red garnets you find all over the United States. These are very specific to the region that I live in, the Smoky Mountains. And let's just say I have a nice honeypot area that's very rich. And when I can get off work early on nice days, sunny days, which, as you guys know, this time of year it's very rainy in the Smoky Mountains, so it's getting harder to get out there. But maybe once or twice a week I can get out. But I'd like to share some of that with you guys as a thank you gift, okay? And so you book a Zoom with me, I'll shoot you some of those out. If you book 2-3 hours with me, I'll shoot you a bigger amount out, okay? So I'm actually in the process of starting to build those gift bags, and there will be a mix. You'll get some little gem ones, and you'll get some medium, and maybe one or two larger ones. So, and I'm already starting to send some of those out to some of my regular people that set up Zooms with me. So I hope that's like a little extra thank you. It's, look, you get a copy of the Zoom. We can talk about whatever subject you like, and you don't have to worry about me criticizing you or laughing at you like you'll probably get from family and friends. I'm open to any of your thoughts. Doesn't always mean I'll agree with everything, but a lot of times I find I'm the one being taught stuff and learning stuff. So, because people just want to be able to explain their ideas and talk about it with somebody that isn't going to judge them, that can think on the same wavelength that they do. Okay, so that's it. That's what I'm offering. My time, a copy of the Zoom, and a little gift of garnets, purple garnets, which are powerful to the crown chakra and the heart chakra. So they're perfect for meditating with and Reiki and, you know, uh, praying. Hold them in your hands when you pray. They're a powerful, crystals have a resonance, folks, and they're tied to your chakra system, depending on the color and the makeup of the crystal. So, or the gem. So, these are a nice little gift that can actually help you. And so anyways, it's just kind of me sharing what you guys hear me talking about, and all of a sudden that manifests in your hand. All of a sudden you see what I'm actually doing, and you got a little piece of my homeland here with you. So anyways, guys, I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. Hit me up for a Zoom. I'd love to talk to you, and we'll see you later.